All right, we are over here at Kerry Fox's. Big Chris, I don't know if y'all remember, but I tuned in the carburetor and stuff and messed with his timing and all that on this motor. This is a 406 come out of that 4-door Chevelle. And we went up the road in a video and all that stuff a while back. But he kept hearing a noise, and check this out. That thing is moving like 60 thousandths of an inch, or 45 to 60. So that is not good at all. Nevertheless, I got a 60 over 350 with 3.75 stroke crank and all this stuff in it. I done put the crank and all that stuff in, all the clearance and stuff. Check this out. That is smooth as it could be. So I'm going to throw the rods and pistons and stuff in this, take his heads and intake and stuff off this, put all his accessories on this motor, and then he's going to drop this down in the Chevelle. So that's 406. This is a 388, 4-bolt, all good stuff in it. I mean, it's a killer. But there's the rods for it over there, all forged, I-beam rods, good pistons, all that. So, all right. We're going to pop this apart, take stuff off this, put in this, and have a good motor. Yeah, have a much better motor. Let's see. The end play in this sucker's perfect. This is
hauled the first motor.
Yeah, that's how I was going to film.
Load in 30 years.
We hauled it over here.
It's never hauled anything.
In a black truck.
Yeah, it's never hauled anything. That's its first haul.
Yeah. But yeah, I've been sick with the Rona for like 3 weeks. Finally got over that mess. So now I got to finish up this motor for Chris so he can drop it down in there. So that's what I'm fixing to do. Drop the rods, pistons, check all the clearances and all that. And Dad's going to take parts off that one while I work on this one. Got a good system here. All right, got everything cleaned up. Looking good. Nice hone on everything. Should do fine. I got the crank and stuff in it, in place set. I'm gonna put the pistons and rods down in it. The journals look good, everything looks good. Yeah, smooth as glass. That's it. This is the first one of 2022. Cool. Dad's here helping me put this motor together. We haven't done one like this in probably 2 years. The last one was the big block in Super Series. Yeah. Dad's slapping a little grease on the journals. I got the pistons in there, ring compressed, the rods and stuff are all, new bearings and stuff are in. We're going to start slapping them down in there. Alright, all the pistons and rods, everything's in, everything's torqued. Got number 1 all the way up top dead center. I'll explain why I got a dish piston and all that stuff later on. Well, that's for compression purposes. But yeah, everything is good, so we'll continue on. Alright, well, we're popping this motor apart. I'm not sure what the lash is supposed to be on this cam. I'm going to figure it out, but that's pretty loose. See that? That's pretty loose, and that one's ain't even all the way up. Man. We'll pull water pump off and pull bouncer and all that.
See,
continue on. Just tear it into it. This is a 406. Now, all right, we got everything pulled off. Dad's got the rockers off, push rods out, valve cover stuff off, water pumps off. Got to knock the bouncer and stuff off of it. He's gonna pull the intake, and we'll look down in there and see what she looks like inside. At all.
Oh yeah.
That's on the very end.
Bang right there.
Oh yeah, it has. It's kissed it. Witness mark. The valve has kissed that piston. You got a cam button in it? No cam button. Oh, that is so bad. What happened? Like I always talk about, I know you've heard me say this 1,000 times in these videos. Talk about camshafts. With a roller, you have to have a cam button to stop the in play, because that thing will move back and forth. It's just, it's a wonder it ain't hurt one of them lifters or hurt the cam.
Holy smokes, man.
See that? Alright, let me grab the camera. See that? Bad, very bad. Alright, so I pulled the cam out and everything looks pretty good till you get right there. See that? See if I can focus. And that is on right here where it hit this piston. And guess what it done? It ruined the lifter too. So.
Run it like that too.
Yeah, it was running on that surface.
And it's that bang, bang, bang on it. Either.
Well, this thing, every time it got to that point, it didn't want to roll. It wanted to drag.
Stop and slide.
And that's the one that had so much extra lash on it too. That sucks right there. Yeah, it ruined that cam. All right, got the pan off, and there's a little bit of shiny material. That's a piece. That's probably off that thrust bearing in the back. But now all that stuff's off, you can see.
Check it clear, son.
I could put the dial indicator on and actually see what it is, but it's a lot. Not the case. All right, we're pulling the rods and stuff out. This thing's still recording. Yep, look at that. Spun rod bearing. Not spun, but lost oil.
Look at that. Oh, what the shit's packed in the... It's part of that bearing inside the journal. Yeah, packed the journal. Look.
This is number 6 rod. Number 6 rod is, hold that. Spun, the bearing is spun. See the bearing? That stuff
Yeah, we got
crammed in this hole here.
See what they do.
I don't think it hurt the rod. I don't think it got hot enough.
That was a top spot.
Yeah. That might stick down in there and pull it out. There's a main, the thrust bearing. Yeah. That is awful. It'd eat that crank up big time. It's almost like the crank's bent too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awful. That crank's junk. But it's a stock 400 balance crank, so that flex plate and balancer will work for any of them. Because see, there's no extra holes drilled or nothing. It's just stock crank. All right, back working on Chris's motor. I got the comp cam. Pretty sure it's an XR300HR. Yeah, XR300HR, which is a 248, 254 duration. Power band's 3,000 to 6,200. It's a street grind, so he'll be able to run a regular distributor gear and all that stuff, and it'll be perfect for this combination. It'll work really, really well. It's a 562, 580 lift, and then subtract what little bit of a lash I put in it. But it'll work with his valve springs he's already got and everything else. So I'll be able to use those heads. I just got to check, make sure that one valve ain't bent. I'll be able to use them same valve springs with that cam, and also got him a lifter for the one that was tore up. I'm going to check all the other ones and make sure they're good, but one of them was busted where it drove into the cam. But all this bottom end is good. Cleaned the oil pump really, really well. Cleaned the oil pan really, really good. And so it's all ready to go back on there. Everything's torqued. All the clearances are right. Everything's good on the bottom end. End plate, all that stuff set. Clearances on the rods and mains is all good. So this motor ought to do really well. As you can see where I had clearance and everything, you know, clear the rods and all that. And because this is a 5.7 rod, you don't have to run a .900 base circle cam. You can run a stock base circle. But we'll do that, slap the pan and stuff on it, and flip it over and put the cam and the lifters and all that in it, and check the heads. If the heads is good, I'm running a 16,000 shim gasket, so that'll put the compression 9.98 to 1 static compression, and then the intake valve closing point. I have to look at my book for that cam. I'm pretty sure it's like 67 or 60, no, I think it's about 63 and a half, 64 intake valve closing point. So he'll be able to run pump gas in this and have absolutely no issues. All right, I got the crank gear off that other crank that was bad and put it on there. I got my book and I had gapped these rings. Top ring is 25 and the second ring is 26. So this motor would handle probably 200 horsepower shot of nitrous, or, you know, boost if you ever wanted to. And they're gapped per cylinder so that, you know, everything is the way it needs to be. Just like I always do. But yeah, I just want to throw that in there. I didn't say that the other day, but the rings and stuff was gapped. All right, I'm going to explain these pistons. This is a 17.80 cc dish. And this is the only piston I could get that would make the compression what it needed to be and work with a 60 overbore and a 375 stroke. I've run these before and they're actually really, really good pistons. So we go with a dish. Same thing like with Carrie's over there working on the Junkyard Underdog. That motor's got dish pistons in it too, don't it, for valve clearance and stuff. So with the 383 strokers, a lot of times you will see a piston will have a dish. You still get a lot of compression because it's been zero decked or a 64cc head or a 60,000 head gasket or whatever else, but right there gives them a lot more valve clearance. And this new cam doesn't have nowhere near as much lift as the old one. The other one was 597 and this is 560 and 580. So that other one was just too big for the street. Now I know that sounds crazy, but there is such a thing as too much cam for, you know, cruise around on the street if you want your valve train and everything to live. So I mean, you can run whatever you want, but if you want it to survive, you gotta keep it not too conservative, but more conservative. All right, here's the cam. Gotta lube it up, throw it in there. Purdy.
So this wasn't her first rodeo.
Yeah. This ain't the first shaft she's lubed up.
I had to take it there, didn't you?
I can't help myself. I can't help myself with those funny.
I done thought it. I just wasn't gonna say nothing. I haven't done this in a
You
really
gotta
long
keep it. You
time.
gotta keep it very straight. Yeah, that's how we do it. Yeah. It's just if you nick one of these lobes, it just like run. All right, camshaft is in. Now I gotta put the gear and the timing chain on it and set the end play and all that good stuff. All right, Carla lubed up the cam and we put it in there. Like I said, it's a XR300 HR comp cam. Said that like 5 times now, but for you people that want to know, that's what it is. So it'll sound good. It's on a 110 lobe separation, so it'll sound killer, and it'll work fantastic. Bigger cubic inches, you know, headers, converter, and that single plane intake. This one, unlike Chris Wilkins, that's built to make all that stuff down low, like idle to 5500. This one's going to be 2800 to 6500 is where this motor is going to live, because it's going to take it and race it and all that kind of stuff. It ain't as tame as Chris Wilkins combo. I mean, it ought to drive around just as good, but it'll have a lot more. Like I said, from 2800 and on up is where this thing's really going to shine, because it's got a 3000 stall converter in it, so you don't really need to bother with all that down low because it's never going to be there anyway. So kind of let the converter and what you're going to do with the motor dictate how you build it and where it's going to live. But it's got a big old 850 carburetor for this thing that was on it, which is, I think, is too big. It needs probably a 750 on it, but I could probably jet the 850 down and get it dialed in and make it work, but a 750 would be better, more velocity, smaller bore, so it'd be better. All right, I am setting the end play on the camshaft. See, when this is a roller, like I said 1,000 times, roller cams, you have to set end play. So what I use, I buy these. So Then you just trim them to get the end play that you want, because there's so many different timing covers, none of them are exactly the same. But what I did is I took and I cut and I cut and I cut and I cut, and that thing is smooth. After I get done cutting and trimming, I get my sander, I stick it on the sander and sand it. This takes a long time because you got to put it in and out, in and out, in and out 1,000 times to get the end play right. But when the end play is right, you probably have 2 or 3 thousandths of movement on the end of the cam forward, and then you're good. You can put the gasket and stuff on, and your lifters and your cam will never hit each other, and all will be right in the world. So never forget to set the end play. Takes a long time, but it needs to be done. It takes a lot longer with these aluminum ones. Them nylon ones are a lot faster, but aluminum ones I think are better. And the way to test it, like I said, put it on there, put the timing cover on, stick your screwdriver down in there right beside one of the lobes and push forward. You can gauge it. You don't really have to put a dial indicator on it. You can, but you don't really have to. You just don't want a whole lot of movement. So I am going to get some blue Loctite, put the lock plate on, and put all that in there, put the timing chain on, and then have timing cover on there. I can flip it over and do the pan. Alright, the camshaft end play is set. I got blue Loctite on the cam bolts. All that stuff is in there. Now I'm going to put the gasket on, put the timing cover on, then I can flip it over and do the pan. She's putting some sealant on where the timing cover is going to go. So I can put the gasket on. Alright, timing cover's on, end play, all that stuff set. And flip it over, put the pan on it, and I'll probably slap the balancer on. Alright, oil pan gasket is on. And yes, I'm liberal with the silicone because you don't want these things to leak. And the blue ones, the reusable, always leak. Alright, bottom end is together, the pan is on, everything's sealed up. Yeah, like I said, I'm liberal with the silicone because I don't want that thing to leak. And those one-piece gaskets, they always leak, so you gotta lay it to them. Ask me how I know. Alright, bottom end's together, put a coat of paint on everything. Looking pretty good. Alright, I put paint in there and then I sand it so you can actually see these numbers, because that's what they look like. You couldn't see them. So you can actually see them now. And also this timing marker was hitting the balancer, so I had to clearance it. But it clears now, so that's good. That's true top dead center right there. Rotate it around, divided it, true top dead center. Alright, got the lifters and stuff in. There's a new replacement for the naughty. So, alright, those are all in. Now I'm going to do head gaskets. I got to coat them, put them on, do the heads. Cleaning the heads up over there. So that's what I'm doing. Alright, I'm doing the head gaskets. Always coat these shim gaskets with copper spray. This is a 7733 SH1. It's a 16,000 shim gasket. And if you have a motor and you want to bump compression at one point, put this gasket on it. But you got to make sure everything's really clean before you put it on there. So, got the lifters in, got the head gaskets coated, got them on there. Other one's drying right there. Got the heads cleaned up the valves, checked all the valves are seated, everything's good. So, I'm going to slap that on top of that, torque it down. But, if anybody out there want to run these, you got to put the copper coat on them. It just helps them seal. I've run these a bunch, never had no issues with them. Always copper coated them. Alright, got the heads and stuff on. I just got to torque the head bolts. Got the weather strip sealant all over the threads. And I replaced the head bolts that were questionable. There was a couple in there that shouldn't have been in there. So I replaced them and put good ones in. So now I'm gonna torque them. All right, head bolts are torqued. I went 30, 50, 65. Everything felt good, so throw a little paint on them and it'll be good. All right, got everything together. Setting the valves, got the new filter on. Put a little bit of oil in the top end. I'm gonna get some oil and pour down in it and prime it a little bit, and then I'll continue setting the lash. Just don't want to rotate around too many times without oil in the bottom. That assembly lube works good, but like I said, I just want to put a little oil in it, prime it a little bit, and then I'll continue setting the lash on it. Seems I got plenty of clearance between the valve. See, that one's open. I got good valve clearance between the piston and the valve. Yeah, I know. Had to get Carla to bring me some oil. Anyway, she's putting oil in the motor, and I'm gonna prime it and get oil flowing everywhere. Alright, I got the lash set. Just set the intake on to cover the hole. Got oil primed to it. I'm going to do some more priming after everything's done. Now that all the lash is set, I can get oil up to the push rods and to the rockers. But I gotta let that cure, and I gotta get some silicone. And I'm going to clean the intake off. But it's basically built. Basically. Alright, back up here working on Chris's motor. I'm going to try to fire it up today. Fix to set the intake down on it, got the intake gaskets and all that stuff. These are my valve covers I just stuck on top of it. I got to clean his off. Got the intake, clean the intake. I was going to like strip it down to the aluminum and polish it up, make it really nice. I got to sit over there in front of the thing. Just put some heat in it because I took it out there and was cleaning it. It got water on it and all that. But I was going to strip it down, take a wire brush and strip it all down and then polish it up and then brighten it up really good. But I just used brake cleaner and a little scrubber and scrubbed all the grease and stuff off of it because it's got paint on it. When I sprayed it with brake cleaner, I could see that the paint was trying to kind of come off of it. So I quit. I'll just leave it like it was and just clean it up. Because I mean, he ain't all about it being super pretty. But I mean, it don't look terrible. I got it cleaned up pretty good. But yeah, also got got some stuff for him, some parts. Got a 4-port carb spacer, and essentially what it is a bore extension. Grumpy Jenkins used to run these. He actually designed this. It was a bore extender that used to go down in the intake, and it would make the fuel signal get closer to the runner. You can do this with a single plane intake. If you've got a single plane, you can put one of these on it and it will help the low end. It'll make it behave like a dual plane, but still have the flow up top, because you're extending how far the fuel stream, the atomization, all that comes down, and it makes a more denser, faster. It actually adds velocity to it, so it'll make a faster, better fuel charge. And then you get that down low, that bottom end. I mean, I'm sure lots of folks do it, but I've never really talked about it on any of the videos or anything like that. But it actually works really well, and you'll see. It'll make that 850 behave like a smaller carburetor, and it'll make that intake behave like a smaller intake, but still have the CFM and the flow up top. But like I said, Grumpy Jenkins designed that many, like long time ago when he was cutting the plenums off them tunnel rams and shortening them and all that. And Moroso actually started copying them and made them. They called them revision plates, but they have absolutely nothing to do with revision. All it is a bore extender. Right out there, give that a shot. Don't believe me. You won't see any result on a dyno. It's only the drivability. That's like Grumpy Jenkins always said, which is a fact. All these dyno motors and everything else, yeah, you get a printout piece of paper that tells you what it makes, but put it in a car and take it and run it. That is the only way to really see what a motor's going to do. Like a dyno won't show you gains with stuff like that because they start the pull at 3,500 or 4,000 RPM loaded. You're not going to see how the drivability is going to be down low. So Dynos are cool, they're a fantastic tool, but take it, run it at the track, change stuff, run it again, and there you'll see improvements. But I'm trying to give him a little bit more drivability and help that intake a little bit down low because he street drives this thing. So that's what I'm going for. But all the valves and stuff set and all that's good to go. I'm probably going to set it down, put it on my stand, hook up a MSD box and all that stuff to it, fire this thing up, put a bass tune in it. I'm probably going to drop the jets of that carburetor a little bit. And this thing's going to be right when it leaves me. So Chris, there you go. I'm going to slap that intake and stuff on there. I was letting my silicone tack up a little bit. I'll slap it on there, and then I'll when I'm cleaning up that spacer, I'll show y'all what I'm talking about. All right, got the intake on. Everything's tightened up. Water pump, accessories, all that stuff's on. I'm gonna pull these valve covers off and clean these valve covers up, put these valve covers back on. Now that I got the intake on, I'm gonna prime it some more, get oil up to the rockers, and that's why I left this on so I can rotate the motor around. But yeah. All right, so I'm priming the engine, and that first drill I had didn't really have enough pump to, that oil's thick and cold, and Kerry's like, I got one that'll turn it, and he wasn't kidding. Look at this thing. That's like a 35-pound drill. 5/8 utility. Well, what do we call it? The Gargantuan 5000?
Yeah, the Gargantuan 5000.
Yeah, that's the Gorilla drill. But it's working. It's getting oil up there. All right, I got Chris's motor set on the ground, fixing to hook stuff up and fire it up in a little while. I'm out from the wire all this stuff up to make this thing work. So it's taking me forever. I'm having to wire a fan, had to get a radiator and all this stuff. Electric fan. I built all this stuff before, but I took it all apart to use that in Dad's 57, so I have to rewire it all. But I'm getting it. It's just, taking forever. Oh, my back's killing me. I had to modify these headers. There were no header bolts or nothing. I had to modify the headers, try to find a set of headers that fit for one. These, I had to flip them upside down to get them to work. So we've got that boat action going on. But finally got them to fit. Had to notch them and cut them and a bunch of other stuff. All I know to do is just keep plugging along at it. It's late in the night now. Had to modify my engine stand in order to bolt this starter on. So I had to cut that out so I could actually get the starter to go on it. Flex plate's on, torque 65 foot-pounds. This is an externally balanced flex plate with an externally balanced OEM balancer and flex plate. And I balanced the rods to as close to, I'd have to show you the difference. The difference between stock rotating assembly and these rods and pistons. I have to look back at my book. But they're close. So when I run this combination in my car, I had the OEM balancer, SFI OEM balancer, and the same flex plate, and it runs 7,500 RPM, no vibration. I mean, it done fantastic. So when I balanced those rods and pistons, I got it as close as I could get it to what OEM would have been, and it worked fantastic. So the same deal as what I've done with this, same setup. We just got to weigh everything. I got a little digital scale that I weigh everything on and get it as close as I can get it. I mean, either that or you go the rotating assembly balance, which Skip White's does that for us, and they do a fantastic job. But you really don't have to with OEM. If you're trying to keep all the weights of OEM stuff like it was, like stock 400 crank, stock 400 balancer, stock 400 rods and pistons and stuff like that, if your weight of your new rods and pistons are close to what the stock ones were, you'll be fine. And plus, the way these cranks and stuff rotate, they're slinging oil all over the pistons, all over everything else. So getting them extremely close to balance, they're always going to be out of balance because of the oil and the weight of the oil and everything else. They're never perfectly balanced, so they work fine. Just trying to get to the point where I can start it up, and I'm dragging today. You know, some days you just ain't got it. Today's one of the days I just feel like I just don't got it in me. I'm getting there. It's going to be interesting to hear this thing. This thing's going to sound good. All right, this is Chris's 388. I got everything hooked up. This was quite difficult to to wire up everything and get everything to working. I changed the spring in the fuel pump, so the spring is only regulating about 7.5 psi fuel pressure, which is plenty to keep the seat from blowing out and still give the bowls enough fuel supply. Got everything run to a toggle switch, and I got my little bump starter right there, so I'll spin it around, flip ignition, and Carrie's going to work the throttle, and we're going to run it in here for a little while. Make sure we got good oil pressure, make sure, you know, I got water and everything, make sure it's all good. So That's what's fixing to happen. Make sure we ain't got no leaks. Should be good. Give her a couple pump shots there. All right. Yeah, I need to plug that vacuum port right there.
Oh. Alrighty then.
That was pretty good right there.
Yeah, buddy. If I
Good solid oil pressure.
Right up.
See what she does now that that vacuum leak's fixed. It shouldn't try to die. Do what?
Good job, sir.
It's up about 80 psi oil pressure. That's good. No oil leaks, nothing, everything seems good. That thing don't shake, once it's mounted in the car, I mean, even sitting like that, it don't shake around that much. The balance is pretty good.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it wasn't jumping around or nothing.
That. Hold it right there. And then you can work the throttle. Because I got to hold this button and flip the ignition on. Maybe if I just spin it. Let's just see what happens if I spin it without a pump shot. Well, hello, Carla.
Was it?
Yeah.
Good.
Don't fall. Beautiful day.
You got your winter boots on.
Gorgeous outside. Hell with winter.
Yeah.
Over it.
Yeah, we're done with winter. The winter just ain't done with us. Look this camera with me real quick. That's need to be kind of like back over that way, back behind this fender, because right there, I had Carrie do it, and it's the audio is so close, so you just need to be about right there. All right, Chris, here's your 388. I ain't set the timer or nothing, but it should fire right up. Is it recording? Good right there.
That's badass.
That sucker sounds good, don't it? Good right there.
That's badass.
That sucker sounds good, don't it?
I think it's gonna scream.
I will run.
Good.
She just rap. All right, Chris's motors. I got all my electrical stuff took off of it. She's fired up, run. Everything seems to be fine. So good oil pressure. Got it up to about 160 degrees. Let it run there, 15-20 minutes. Everything seems fine. I'm gonna check the lash one more time, and he's gonna come pick it up. So there's another small block in the books. All right, I'm running his valves. I got everything took off. I'm running his valves one more time, and then I'm gonna bring it top dead center, then pull the distributor out. He's gonna drop that motor down in his car and get it all bolted up and everything set up. I'm gonna come out there and set the timing curve and adjust the carburetor and all that stuff, and we'll take up the road and shake it down. I'm continuing on checking the lash. It's just after it gets up to temperature and everything expands and then shrinks back down after it cools, it's just a good idea to check. Run through the valves one last time. 9 times out of 10, I never have to readjust them, but I might make a little bit of an adjustment. Just say, like if I set them, just for instance, if I set them at 14 cold and it gets up to temperature and they tighten up a little bit more than what I'd like, I'll go back through and set them at like 16 cold instead of 14 cold. That way when they expand, everything heats up and they shrink or expand depending on whether it's aluminum head or a cast iron head. That way your lash is right. But I set these, this is a special combination. So these valves are set tight. They're set cold at 14. I know a lot of people are like, oh my God, that's way too tight, but trust me, that's the way they need to be for this combination. It's kind of one of them special things I do. Like this cam's power band is 3,000 to probably 62, 63, the way I set this thing up, just like I did Jesse's motor. He'll be able to turn it to 65, 67 with absolutely no issues at all. It'll handle it all day long. So, should be good. And the only reason I do this like this is because I've done it on my motors and I run the guts out of them like that, so I know it works. Continue on, and then he'll be here to pick this thing up. So it's cool. Another engine in the books, and I got all my paperwork. I'm going to give Chris the paperwork on it. Like I said, probably heard me say this already. Static compression is 9.98 to 1 with a 16,000 shim gasket. If he ever wanted to boost this motor, all he'd have to do is put a 39,000 gasket on it, and it would go from 998 to 9 to 1 and be absolutely ready for a boost. She's good, broke in, all that stuff went fine, so I'm pretty tickled. Pulled the dipstick, no oil, no debris in the oil, nothing like that. So put 100 miles or so on this combination, and then he can drain the oil and put fresh oil in it. Run the VR1 20W50, which is a thicker weight oil, but I like a thicker weight oil to absorb. Like if you're going to boost a motor, you're going to spray nitrogen on the motor, like a thicker oil to help absorb the impact from the piston coming down, and the clearances on the rods and stuff, so all that good stuff.